Hello from Zomax Racing. I want to thank you first of all for buying one of my 1/32nd scale Formula Fords. These cars were designed kind of on a whim for the local racers that enjoyed racing them, and so I thought I would try to improve the design and make something that's a little better handling. In this video I'm going to show you how to put one of these together. Got examples of two completed of the 2012 version of the Formula Ford, and we're going to take apart this this retro version and just show you how to put all the pieces together. I hope you enjoy it. When you take it out of the bag, you'll notice that the helmet is down inside there, and the motor pod is connected with a couple little stringers. So the first thing you do is just snip off the stringers. And there's your motor pod. One thing you'll notice is that the front of the motor pod has a little spherical shape in here, and there's a little spherical detent in the body to match, and that's just to help it roll as the body wants to tip going through the corners. And now we can get at the helmet, trim him off. The helmet's got a little tab for a couple reasons. One, you can use that tab to hold on to when you paint it, and then that tab is also made to fit down in the hole after you're all done painting. You just jam it in there. A couple other things to note about the body is all of the holes for the screws and the guide flag are purposely made a little bit on the small side. The tolerances of the 3D printing is plus or minus 0.15 millimeters, so my feeling is I'd rather have a hole that you can drill out to the exact size that you want, rather than having a hole that's too big. This front area here, the reason that rib is there is so that you can fill that front of the nose with some lead. I use lead shot and then fill it with epoxy. So that's so that you don't have to worry about whatever you put in weight in the nose getting in the way of the guide flag. So the first thing you want to do is measure the diameter of the guide flag that you're going to use. This is the one I'm going to throw in. It's an old one from something. I'm going to use that. So I've measured that and found a drill bit, and I just go in there and clean that hole up a little bit. Sometimes, depending on the size, you might need to put it in a drill. Other times, depending on what you're using, you don't. The 3 holes for the motor pod screws, I'll show you in a minute. I use a little 256 button head that uses a 50 thousandths Allen. I like those because they stick to my driver. So I just drilled these 3 holes out to the proper size, tap drill size for those screws. I've had these screws in and out on a bunch of the bodies multiple times without any problem. Then the other thing you want to do is, depending on what screw you're going to use to mount the motor, you want to drill out that hole so that it's a good clearance hole for your motor. So once you've done all that, you'll see that you want to get it so the guide flag moves real free. So that just pops in and pops out. For the front bushings for the front axle, you can do a couple different things. You can use a piece of brass tubing. You can get some NSR, makes a real nice axle spacer. If you use one of those, you'll need to drill that out just ever so slightly to get one of those to press in there. JK Products makes what they call a brass collar. It's normally soldered onto a front of an axle for the front so that you can allow those wheels to spin. I like these because they've got a nice brass end on them, nice to touch the wheel, and then I can make those so that they slide up and down ever so slightly to give the front axle just a little bit of float. So those are what I use for the front axles on my cars. So now that we've got really the body all set to put together, I usually scrub the body and the pod real well with like a Dawn dishwashing liquid and a toothbrush, and get everything all nice and clean and let it dry. And then I found this SEM primer. It's a high build surface primer. A few coats of that and a little bit of light sanding, and you can get a finish like these two cars here. I usually put, like I said, I put weight up in the front, I put weight behind the guide flag, and then you can put weight along here in this other car. I've got weight tucked up under each side here, and I've got a piece of weight in there. So I get all the weight epoxied in. This nylon is very slippery stuff. It's a lot like a cutting board, and you want to use a nice epoxy to get it to stick in there. So after I get all of my weight in the way I want, then I do the primer and the top coat. I've been using the Tamiya. It is a real good paint for the plastic. It sets up well on that primer, and then because I'm a little bit nutty, I like using just a little clear coat pearl on top of the decals to give the car a little extra shine. It just gives you just a little bit of a kind of a metal flake effect to make it look a little bit better. So then after I have everything all painted, then I start putting it together. So I've got the motor in now. Put a little screw in there. It's easiest to drop the screw in first and then snap the motor in. In this car I'm just using bushings. You can also use ball bearings. Either one will fit in there. So now our motor is ready to go in the car. Now we've got the motor pod and everything together. Obviously I don't have any braid in this car. The first time you put your motor screws in, I snug them all the way down, and then I back them off one whole turn each one, and that should give you just a little bit of float between your pod and your body and allow the car to handle just a little bit better. So that's what this one looks like pre-painted. You notice the driver is out right now. The stem on that driver is long. So if I stick it in, you can see that the driver is sticking up high. So when you put him in and glue him in, you want to trim off pretty close to the bottom of the driver area so that it clears the motor. But it will clear the motor. You just have to have just a little bit of a stick sticking out there, not too much, because right now it's bottoming out on the motor. So there you go. Again, thank you very much for buying one of these Formula Fords. I hope you have as much fun with them as we do here in Cincinnati. Take care.